Hey everyone, it's Allie, and it's time for another fellowship video. Over the past few days, I've been doing quite a lot of tinking on the open beta, playing mostly Helena, but recently I decided to go try out Meiko as well. I got both the champion, and what I want to do in today's video is talk about both tanks, their strengths, their weaknesses, and compare them a little bit to each other, and talk about what I've been personally liking about both and what I've been hating about them, and just give a little bit of feedback. This video could also be used as a way for you to try and determine what tank you want to play when early access releases on October 16th. And while sure, this is all going to be information based off of the open beta build, I really don't think either tank is going to drastically change from what we're currently playing to where they're going to be completely different and where all this is really going to change that much. So with that said, let's talk about everything. But first, we have a word from our sponsor. If you know anything about me, then you might know that my internet connection isn't the most reliable while playing Path of Exile. And to fix my problem, Exit Lag is here to help. Exit Lag provides quite a lot of very useful online server solutions, ranging from a diagnostic center to multi-path server connectivity and even an AI-powered route optimizer. They support over 2,000 games, including Path of Exile, which comes very handy if you want to go play with your NA or EU friends across the pond without dying every 5 seconds. Just head over to their website, create accounts, download Exit Lag, and install. It's just so simple that even a Lightning Arrow Magic Find Deadeye Endurer can figure it out. Once you're done, you can select almost any game you can imagine, pick the server you want to route to, and just click apply. And I feel like the results just kind of speak for themselves. I can now go play with my EU friends and not have a horrible time. Exit Lag also features some multiplayer plans. There's a duo one for you and your Discord kitten or bot, or even a squad plan for your whole Magic Find party. You all can go fix your lag. So if you and your group wants better in a few clicks, or you just want to go and support your favorite local e-girl, check out my link in the description below for a 50% off a 1-year plan with the world's best network optimization tool. So let's start this discussion off by talking about what kind of active mitigation and defenses both the tanks have to offer. For Helena, you're going to have toughness, which is just a bar you fill up by playing your character correctly, and it just makes you take less damage. And you're going to have a hefty amount of block that's going to be raised upwards to 50% while you have your active mitigation shields up active. With this, you feel pretty darn healthy. And the cool thing is that Helena wants to stack a lot of haste, and shields up cooldown gets reduced by haste. So overall, it's a win-win. You end up just naturally having very high shields up uptime by just gearing yourself properly and just getting more passive points that interact with all this. So you basically eventually get to hit 100% uptime or very close to it with very minimal effort on your part. On the other hand, for Meiko, she pretty heavily relies on her keeping Stone Shield active at all times, which takes 50% of the damage for her and gives her basically double armor. That double armor still makes her have significantly less total armor than what Helena has to offer, so you are going to overall feel a lot squishier to auto attacks, especially when you combine the fact that Helena has 50% block chance most of the time. And while sure, you do get 10% parry and 10% dodge chance on Meiko, if a hit goes through, especially a big one, you don't really have any sort of heft to stop it from absolutely chunking you. The other issue that comes with all this is going to be the first major difference between the two tanks is the fact that while sure, Stone Shield's health scales with your stats, the rate at which enemy damage scales is a lot faster. And in the end game, if you ever have a pull just go wrong to where it takes too long, a DPS dies, something happens or whatever, and you run out of Stone Shield, you can easily put yourself in a position to where you're just completely paper, because without Stone Shield, you basically die. It has felt kind of bad in a lot of the dungeons that we've done, especially ones where the enemies just did so much damage than I expect them to do, and I just basically lost my stone shields completely. While with Helena, if your shield up ever does fall off, given that you gain toughness every time you block anyways, you're probably going to be in a very comfy position, and most of the time actually don't even notice a shields up is not active anymore, given that you have quite a lot of armor to work with in the first place. Because of that, and the fact that Helena's rotation is significantly easier to do, you basically just kind of press your buttons in whatever order you want to. There is an order of operation, there's a correct way to do it, but it doesn't matter that much in comparison to Meiko's combo-based rotation, to where if you do it incorrectly, you put yourself really far behind, and that could potentially lead to just you dying. I would say, especially as a beginner, you're going to just have a much better time just learning how to play the game and being able to focus on interrupting and dealing with all the monster abilities on Helena than you will ever do on Meiko. The other really important thing that we have to go over is each tank's ability to just group up enemies together, because that's actually very important in this game. For Meiko, you basically just have to run at everything, and you have to press your stone shield to begin with, which is going to start getting Ian into, and then you also have to start doing your combos at the same time. And the only ability you have to really assist you with all this is going to be Cyclone, which is a 1-minute cooldown that just does a one-time suck, which if you slightly misposition yourself, and there's no circle for it, so it's something you have to eventually get the muscle memory for of how far it goes. If you miss with that, well, whatever enemies are trying to group up, if they just sit there and spam bolt you, they're just going to keep sitting there not being part of the stack. On the other hand, Helena gets access to one of the most broken abilities in the game, Grand Melee. Not only does it reduce the magic damage your party takes by 20%, for the whole duration of it, making it a really solid defensive on bosses where this otherwise wouldn't do anything. But it also makes every single enemy within a giant radius around you not be able to cast or do anything other than run up to you and auto attack you for the whole duration. This also works on enemies that have bows. They will stop using their bow and even them will run into melee range of you. And given that you probably have shields up active, your armor is significantly better than Meiko's, and you overall have a significantly easier time dealing with auto attack damage, this is also just a massive defensive layer, while Meiko's Cyclone does literally nothing. The other thing about this is that it stops all current spell casting, and it stops all monsters from being able to do literally anything else other than walk up to you and auto you. If a enemy was doing some sort of big frontal cleave, you can press Grand Melee and literally cancel it, giving you more utility out of it than what Meiko would ever have to offer you. Sure, Meiko's Cyclone also does interrupt casts, but if you're using on a big enemy that's unstunnable, unknockbackable, uninterruptible, whatever, Meiko can't do anything about that, while Helena can completely stop any ability of any monster in the game that's not a boss that she pleases to. This makes some pulls possible that otherwise wouldn't be possible on Meiko, and it just makes some packs that otherwise would be kind of annoying to deal with, that either spam a lot of bolts or are very annoying for your party to deal with or very dangerous, a complete breeze. You can see just how good this ability is in practice in something like Fell, where with Meiko, you could run into a situation where you have 10 archers that just sit there and you have a bad time trying to have to go and line of sight everything and just not have a good time while your party is getting bolted and they're trying to cleave everything down. And then with Helena, you just walk up, you press Grand Melee, you stand there and everything runs at you. It's just so much better. I really hope Cyclone does get changed before early access comes out. And I hope Meiko also just gets something to invalidate every monster like that. Because otherwise, yeah, Helena has a pretty big leg up when it comes to just stuff like that. On top of that, what we should also discuss is each tank's ability to self-heal. Helena basically has nothing that she can do to herself. She does have a tiny little shield that she can give to herself and on demand, but it basically gets eaten within one auto attack, so it's nothing really to write home about. While Meiko actually has some pretty darn good self-healing. She has the ability to heal for 200% of the damage she does with every single combo finisher that she has, making her very self-sufficient on bosses to where I basically never needed my healer to ever care about my health, with the exception of a few bosses that both tanks would otherwise need to be babysat quite heavily on. While on the other hand, Helena basically always needed a healer to keep you alive at all times. Due to that, I would say that Meiko is probably a little bit better in lower tier content, especially if you're running with random pug healers that you don't really trust, as you'll have a much better time keeping yourself alive, especially when you also combine in Serenity, which is a big full heal about every 30 seconds or so. Where with Helena, on every boss, on every trash pack, you are always in the hands of a healer. Personally, I don't like that kind of gameplay. It's a little bit annoying. It's actually what made me end up trying Meiko in the first place. But I will have to say that in higher end content, Meiko's damage compared to Helena's is significantly lower. I was doing maybe around 30-40% less damage. So while sure all that self-healing is great, you don't end up doing enough damage in comparison to what the enemies do to really make that relevant in comparison to Helena just being able to stand there and just take it to the face significantly better than Meiko ever would be able to. I do think in a very high-end scenario, if you aren't playing with a healer that you are very, very trustworthy of, you will end up having a little bit of a better time on Meiko on bosses due to that, but I don't really think that's going to be as important given that even Meiko ends up having to rely on their healer pretty heavily for trash, and that's realistically the majority of dungeons. So with all that said, I want to wrap this video up by talking about what I'm personally going to be doing at the start of early access, what I'd recommend for you to do, and to give the devs a little bit of feedback on what I'd personally like to see changed. I'd highly recommend for you to pick Helena unless something drastically changes before early access. I don't think Meiko is the correct option for lawn and new players, given you have to do a 30-button rotation that actively punishes you and potentially could get you killed if you do incorrectly, versus Helena's rotation where you can kind of press in whatever order you want to and you'll still end up doing more damage than Meiko or do literally the same damage as her, which is going to make it a lot easier for you to be able to learn the dungeons if it's your first time playing the game, given you won't have to worry about doing your semi-complex rotation correctly while trying to interrupt enemies, trying to figure out what they do, trying to keep yourself alive. And given that Helena just by default is a bigger rock, you are just overall going to have a much better time with it. I do personally plan to gear up and play Meiko as well, but my plan and what I'd recommend for you to do as well is to progress the game, given that there are catch-up systems in here. And then once you feel like you'd like to try the other side of the coin, use all the catch-up systems to buy yourself some quartermaster gear for Meiko and catch up her item level pretty quickly while just being able to run a bunch of quick play to get used to her fairly complex setup. What I personally would like to see changed going into early access or maybe after early access is for Meiko to not feel as selfish as a tank as she currently is. With Helena, given that I can just take up martial command, I can just pretty much completely solve any one boss ability by myself by just pressing both Grand Melee and Siegebreaker, giving my group 50% DR against magical abilities or 30% DR against anything else. And it's made some overlaps that otherwise would feel absurdly scary, and that my healer would basically have to dump every ability they'd have to keep ourselves alive through into a complete joke to where my healer just has to just throw out 1 or 2 heals and everything gets handled. I would like to see Meiko also have access to some sort of group-wide damage reduction. Maybe something to do with her pressing both Twin Bulwark and her ultimate at the same time. Maybe something like if both are active at once, you instead cause the statue to project a dome around it that makes it take a percentage of all damage of anyone who stands inside of it, not just it basically taking all the damage for you. And I feel like that would be pretty fair given the opportunity cost of Meiko using their, oh no, this is my last resort, I'm about to die, press the statue button, and using it as a way to keep your group alive if you feel like you're confident and don't need it for yourself. I'd also would like to see Meiko's rotation be simplified a little bit. I don't know why we need to have the builders in at all. I feel like the spenders is just fine. Why do I need to always press a button before I can actually do damage or heal myself that doubles the damage of those skills? Why can't they just be balanced around you having no builders and you just doing 2 combo spender over and over again? It just adds extra clunkiness and extra effort and extra learning curve to the class that literally just adds nothing to it at all. Sure, the legendary necklace would completely have to be redesigned for Meiko due to that, but I really don't feel like it's a good playstyle, and it just really doesn't feel good to do in my opinion. Those are my thoughts on both of the tanks in Fellowship currently based on the final open beta before the launch of the game, and I hope that this video was informative to you and helped you at least learn a little bit more about both tanks, what they can do, what they don't do, and hopefully at least make your decision a little bit easier for it. And as always, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. I also stream on Twitch every single day, so if you'd like to come by while the open beta is still active and see me play both tanks, I'd be more than happy to see you there as a part of our community, to hang out with all the other kitties, and if you want to ask me any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you at the point. With that said, kitties, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope to see you either in the open beta or in the early access. I hope you have a lot of fun with it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.